take us to task. If you think that Star Wars is ruined, if you think that the lore has been broken, leave your comments on this video and we'll reply with another one of these videos.
Yeah. Ask us in good faith and we will happily answer in good faith.
Unseen for a DYAD in the Force.
What's up, guys? Welcome to DYAD in the Force, and welcome to the first edition of Exposing Star Wars Bot/Chud Comments. Now, we get a lot of comments on our social channels, and we choose to spend our time entertaining the good faith comments and questions about lore, and we make our videos explaining the lore of Star Wars. But there are some comments that we would rather not give the time of day.
It's fun to laugh at dumb people sometimes.
We are going to put them on blast. This is where we're going to read some comments that we get on our socials and react to them, essentially. And the first one we have comes from @RedoTheSequels. I posted a reply to their posit that we were lying. They quoted me saying there is actual evidence in books and transcripts that show George Lucas in pitch meetings in 2013 discussing his outlines prior to the purchase. These are facts. That's what I said. They say, That's true. Lucas did discuss his outlines. However, Disney completely rejected them and they went and did their own thing. The quote-unquote lie is those things people tell that Lucas had planned for Luke or other characters, which is not true. Lucas never intended for Luke Skywalker to be a loser or a failure.
Wrong. What's funny is that George Lucas intended for Luke to be even more of a failure, even more dejected. He wanted him to be like Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now. Those are George Lucas's words, and that's way more broken than what we got.
Yeah, and luckily enough, I have the evidence right here. Fascinating facts. Years before The Last Jedi began development, the treatment left behind by George Lucas in 2012 also had Episode 8 be the one wherein Luke Skywalker would die. Although Luke Skywalker only barely appears in The Force Awakens, the concept artists had a lot to imagine based on the fragments of the story they were hearing as it developed. Rey was on a mission to seek out Luke Skywalker, who had disappeared. As described by George Lucas, Rey is like Willard going upriver seeking out Colonel Kurtz, an allusion to Apocalypse Now. The story had Rey find Luke on a Jedi Temple planet, but he is a recluse, withdrawn into a very dark space, and needs to be drawn back from despair. Lucas approved one striking piece by Christian Altsman that embodied this incarnation of Luke. So there you go, straight from the source, straight from a book. George Lucas was discussing these plans in these development meetings, and he was discussing his outlines, and they were using some of it. Now, did they use all of it? No. That's where we get a lot of the information from The Ride of a Lifetime, from Iger, who says that he feels George Lucas would feel betrayed. But we never see George Lucas actually saying that.
What's funny is, I know that book, I want to say that book came out in 2022, something like that. We've actually known about this for much longer. And the problem is a lot of people are not following the Star Wars information as it's coming out. I knew that Altsman was working on it, and I was following him on Instagram, and he posted that picture years and years ago because he was so happy that George Lucas himself approved that picture. George Lucas specifically approved that one, and also he did a piece that showed the original Jedi Temple, and those are two images that George Lucas approved. Now, there are certain things that they went off in a different direction with, but we know a lot of what he was originally going to do, and it involved Darth Talon, and she manipulated his student, which would be Jedi Killer, who becomes Kylo Ren. And then that guy destroys the school, and then Luke becomes a recluse and runs away. Yeah, this is all stuff we know.
Essentially, George Lucas's outline served as a toy chest for them to kind of pull from in terms of high-level concepts. Of course, they didn't take it verbatim and do it page for page, word for word, but a lot of his stuff is in the sequel trilogy. With that said, The Last Jedi being the closest to his outlines. This comment comes from Greg Fenton, who commented on our video on John Boyega's comments about how he'd do the sequel trilogy. It says, it's funny watching shills find out their heroes disagree with them. Saying Luke in The Last Jedi is the most Jedi thing ever just shows you have no idea what a Jedi is. And no, sweetie, I've done Kubodo and Kendo, and bow and sword are completely different. It's like saying if you play guitar, you can play piano. Rey did just pick up a lightsaber and know how to use it. Same with the Force, blaster, and ship. And I'm glad you ended with a ship, because that's exactly how Anakin was able to fly the ship. That's exactly how Luke was able to fly the ship. But to go back to the first part, it's funny watching shills find out their heroes disagree with them. John Boyega is no hero of mine.
That's why I laughed so hard, because like, Luke Skywalker is a hero of mine, and
Yes.
he said that he fundamentally disagreed, but having seen the film, he was wrong.
I've had trouble accepting what he saw for Luke. But again, I have to say, having seen the movie, I was wrong.
You saying that you fundamentally disagreed with Rian Johnson.
I regret saying that out loud. And I said it before I saw the whole movie put together. It prejudices people in a way that's unfair, because people that are unhappy with the movie, will cite that and say, see Hannah
even
hated
Luke
it too.
himself.
Yeah, it's got to move on. I do like the unexpected, and that was certainly unexpected. And even though it's hard, when you're pushed out of your comfort zone, that's probably a good sign, because otherwise it would be, something that everyone had expected, and that's not good.
My hero in Luke Skywalker agrees with me, so that's cool. John Boyega, we have different opinions, and that's totally okay. He's not my hero, but more than that, neither of us are so insecure or small-minded that we need the actor that we like to agree with our opinion. We can like things that they don't like, or whatever. I love Obi-Wan in the original trilogy, and he was famously not a big fan of Star Wars, told people to stop watching it. Doesn't mean he was wrong, doesn't mean we should.
I also think the first part is a little bit of projection, because none of us on this side ever try to use actors' quotes to justify our own opinions. It's always that side of the fence that needs to say, even Mark Hamill said, or Sam Witwer said. Every time we hear this stuff, especially as content creators, we say they're entitled to their own opinion, we disagree with them. And it's as simple as that. The second part of this is saying Luke in The Last Jedi is the most Jedi thing ever just shows you have no idea what a Jedi is. That sentence shows you they don't know what a Jedi is. Because what is the first thing that Yoda says to Luke when he's training him?
Much anger in him. A Jedi must have the deepest commitment. The most serious mind. Adventure. Excitement. A Jedi craves not these things.
A Jedi craves not these things.
A Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense. Never for attack.
But tell me why I can't...
No, there is no why.
A Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack.
He also says,
I'm looking for a great warrior.
Ah! Great warrior. Force not make one great.
If we apply all of these sayings to what Luke does in The Last Jedi, he shows up, he saves the Resistance by buying them time to escape through the mines, and does not lift a finger in terms of being violent. He doesn't brandish his lightsaber towards anyone. It's all a projection, and it's all a ruse, and it allows the Resistance to escape.
what's more is he inspires the galaxy. In the end of that movie, they send out a call and no one came. That was a big deal. No one came at all. But Luke comes in and does what he does, and then at the end, we see even children are recreating this legendary moment with Luke Skywalker with their toys. A little kid, Timothy Blagg, walks out there with his broom, pretending to be Luke and looking up at the stars, wanting to go out and be a hero. Rise of Skywalker. The next time they call out for help, the entire goddamn galaxy shows up. That was Luke's inspiration. That's absolutely, like, if you don't think that's the most Jedi thing, then I can't help you, dude.
This is why we're exposing these comments.
It's so dumb.
So, okay, they go on to say in a very condescending tone, "No, sweetie, I've done Kubodo," which I assume they mean Kobudo and Kendo. A bow and a sword are completely different. It's like saying if you play guitar, you can play piano. Lucky for you, I have a video of me playing the piano. I've never had any piano training. I play the guitar. Choco plays the guitar. I bet if you give us a video of someone playing some sort of riff on the piano, we can replicate it. These are all transferable skills.
It's so preposterous. Like, yeah. Well, I mean, by the way, the commenter is right in the fact that a bow staff and a sword don't act the same way. Not every skill is going to be transferable, but a lot of them are going to be transferable. Not to mention the physical fitness that goes into it, the awareness of your opponent and how they move and how you protect their attacks. Also, there's no reason to believe that she had never picked up anything resembling a shorter weapon than a staff, right? So we see Finn pick up a lightsaber and he begins to fight against that stormtrooper. Any reasonable person says, well, he's had stormtrooper training. He's probably trained in melee combat, and so it makes sense. No one's complaining about these things. But like, you see someone proficient in melee combat and you assume this is the only weapon she's ever picked up. Not only that, lightsaber doesn't function like a sword.
Yeah.
Like, the most important thing with a sword is going to be your edge discipline. You don't have to do that with a lightsaber. All strikes are cuts.
Yeah, I also wanted to lean in on this Kobudo and Kendo. Of course, none of that is going to really help you with a lightsaber because Kendo is a very specific art, so is Kobudo. But as someone who has training in Kali Kali or Eskrima, that stuff transfers brilliantly to lightsaber because just like a stick, every side of it is lethal, as well as leaning on my training in Eskrima, I can use the bow. Can I use it like a Kobudo student or practitioner? Probably not, but I can use it effectively in a fight. These are all skills that transfer. I am a guitarist, but I use my skills with the guitar for dexterity, for being able to hold a tune, and being able to recognize the shapes that I need to make to play certain riffs on a piano. Now, I'm not a piano player. I can't play all songs, or I can't sight read and play for you like everything, but we're not making the argument that Rey should be a master at the lightsaber because she uses the bow. We're arguing that what they show in The Last Jedi, with her training with the bow and then picking up the lightsaber and looking at both and trying to do a one-to-one connection and then trying to replicate the strikes except using the lightsaber, that's what we're arguing. These are transferable skills. She knows how to vector. She knows how to choose angles. She fails and cuts the rock and, disturbs the lanai, but she's never been shown to be a master. The moment she picks up the lightsaber, she is fumbling around. She is just doing the most basic strikes, and she's being driven back to the cliff, literally, by Kylo Ren. The moment that she does good is a combination of two factors. Number one is she taps into the Force, the same way Anakin taps into the Force using Jedi reflexes for pod racing and for being a pilot. And the same way that Luke uses the Force to aid him in his senses, firing a torpedo into the Death Star. Now, the second compounding factor is that Kylo Ren is injured. He's been banging on that injury. He's been trying to sustain himself with the pain. At the end of the day, the Force is only as good as the stamina you have to use it.
So basically, the commenter just doesn't know ball.
Not.
And there's this, and I know people use media literacy a lot, but if you watch the movie and you see people being obliterated by this Wookiee bowcaster and you see someone get shot in the stomach, you should understand that they're not bringing their A game to that fight, and so I just don't understand the mental gymnastics that these people have to go through in order to make a complaint. like, oh, is she the perfect fighter with a light? No, he is dog walking her for 99% of that entire fight. All she was able to do was just not die until he ran out of juice. That's literally all she had to do. People would try to make it sound like she picked up a lightsaber and then was an absolute professional. And in fact, she actually never fights on the same level as Kylo Ren the entire trilogy. In her trilogy, she's the weakest Force user in her own trilogy.
I mean, she gets driven back in the first movie and uses the Force to push back an injured Kylo Ren. In the second movie, she is fighting with Kylo Ren in the throne room and fights only 2 of those guards and gets hit by one of them. And she needs help. And she needs help with the other one. Kylo Ren's fighting all of them by himself. And then the last one, when she has the most training, she loses to Kylo Ren. And this is why we often fall back on there are some internalized misogynistic reasons why you would focus on this stuff, because at no point is she shown to be proficient with the lightsaber. You just saw someone being a little bit good and projected that they were making the other man look bad.
I'd argue there's at no point that she's really proficient in anything.
I would say lifting rocks, but
that's good. That's true.
It's a low bar at that point. They did go back and forth with Choco, so I will expose one more comment from this person. They say Luke didn't save them, the Foxes did, and he didn't save Kylo. Instead, he gave up on him, and he didn't stop the First Order or save anyone they'll kill in the future. And he didn't inspire anyone to do anything, nor are the Jedi ever shown to be against violence. The way you hold a staff, footwork, hit versus cut, counter pressure, follow through, how you use your hips, how you orient your body, etc. is all 100% different. Unlike you, I've used both. Don't presume to know Choco like that. I mean, I'm pretty sure no one knows that I have training in Eskrima. You can take transferable skills like footwork. You know how to move your feet to avoid your vector. You're not going to learn how to do like a Heaven 6 and an Earth 6 drill with Eskrima, and then you take like 2 swords and suddenly you're fumbling with your feet. You transfer common sense things. The same way I transfer dexterity with a guitar to the piano to replicate something I've seen played.
And that's why I say this is not Skyrim. This is not, oh, I haven't leveled up my one-handed.
Exactly.
And the whole Luke didn't save anyone. Like, so you didn't watch the movie? I don't. The Foxes saved him.
No, they didn't. They don't know ball, and they didn't watch the movie. They didn't watch how the First Order was bearing down on that blast door and only stopped because Luke showed up. They were literally they were on their way in at that point. Like, play Battlefront. Like, they were literally going in. But Luke stopped them because Kylo Ren was obsessed with him.
And then he's like, oh, well, he didn't try to save Kylo. Because he was not the person to save Kylo Ren. You saw it was on sight.
Yeah, and the Foxes could have shown them the way. They would not have made it out. Again, it's because Luke stopped them from being pursued.
Yeah, I like, it's all funny. You know, he goes into the transferable skills, hit versus cut. Again, lightsaber, you don't have to know how to cut. All hits cut. What's funny though is you also, like, as he quotes kendo, but you never see a Jedi use kendo.
Yeah, because kendo is a specific art. It's a specific sport.
Yes.
You sit there trying to hit your opponent's wrist or their head and going, men. It's not. It's like, again, it's a sport. Like, it's not making you a master swordsman to which you have infinite authority over others. Like you said here, unlike you, I've used both. I've used bows, I've used swords, I've used sai, I've used daggers. Of course, I've used rattan sticks, but they all operate in the same fashion. If you know which parts of the tool is lethal, which parts of the tool is dangerous, you know how to account for vectors so that your footwork does the work.
Also, it's pretty rare for someone to be in martial arts and to have never picked up anything other than the one weapon. Like, I don't.
No, I like your
Skyrim
example, because that is true. It is not like games. You don't unlock like one path talent tree and then on the others you just have no idea what the hell you're doing. Like, I would get it if Skyrim, like, you were a two-handed claymore, you know, kind of guy, and then you picked up a one-handed dagger and you were like, what is this? What is this? You know?
You lack the dexterity to use this weapon. You're like, oh man.
The final thing I'll say about this is that there is all of the transferable skills when it comes to bow staff to lightsaber. Just like Choco said, a hit is a cut. There's no edge discipline or indexing you have to account for. So just like me with my sticks, with a bow, using those lever techniques will work with a lightsaber.
Everything they said was wrong.
Well, let's keep going. He didn't inspire anyone. If you keep playing the movie, you see kids telling the story. That is literally one person, three people. Like, if they didn't show that scene, I would probably say, hey, maybe he didn't inspire anyone. But they literally show you three kids. That's more than no one. Aha! And of course, for this comment, Rey didn't learn the lightsaber. She was instantly great. We already proved this. She was flailing around doing basic strokes. Anybody that touches a sword for the first time, like, come on now. Like, I have katana. Like my nephews, anybody that asks me to hold it, like, can I hold it? They'll do something. They'll do like things that they've seen. It's not uncommon.
I'm just picturing someone picks it up and goes, "What do I do?"
All of this to say that no, she wasn't instantly great. She was flailing around and she was just striking. And Kylo was pushing her back every step of the way until she tapped into the Force. The same Force that all of our protagonists use to be good. But even then, like we said, in the rest of the trilogy, she loses a lot. So
she dies.
This one comes from Casual Chris 1. Star Wars is ruined. How do you go from George's 6 films to Acolyte, Ahsoka, and Kenobi, Andor, the only exception? The lore and canon is completely destroyed. My first reaction to that is like, how?
If you think it's ruined, go away. That's all. I don't know how else to say it. And I don't want to sound mean to these people, but like, legitimately, if Star Wars is not bringing you joy anymore, that's okay. You no longer have to go. There are bands that I love. I grew up, listen, I grew up as an emo kid. All right, leave me alone. But like, I grew up with like Taking Back Sunday, right? After Louder Now, I wasn't into any of their newer stuff. So like, I wouldn't go to any more of their concerts because they're going to play a bunch of new stuff that I'm not into, you know? That just happens.
Yeah.
If they do a 20-year anniversary of Tell All Your Friends or, you know, Where You Want to Be, then I'm there, you know? If the franchise is not going where you want, that's fine. But let the rest of us enjoy it, right? And you can't tell me Star Wars is ruined because, I mean, again, if you understand that it was purchased for $4 billion and you look at the value of the IP now, raising the value of Star Wars tenfold means it's not ruined. You may not like things, and that's okay, but it's not ruined. And also, how long have we been talking about Star Wars being ruined? I won't take all the points. Wow. Sorry, you go ahead.
Well, I mean, just to kind of go off of what you just said, we have Galaxy's Edge. You know, we have so much more Star Wars than we ever had before. I love how they just say Andor the only exception, to kind of just like say that one exception means your statement is wrong. Like, literally. You know, it's like if you're saying Star Wars is dead, except for like one or two shows, like then your entire premise sucks. It's wrong.
Except for the most recent show. You're like,
now,
okay. So.
I will grant you could say I haven't liked Star Wars until Andor, which would be, very your opinion, and it would be very much correct. Like, you probably haven't liked Star Wars until Andor, but to say that a thing is ruined or a thing is dead, or a thing is destroyed, but the latest thing was really, really good, it's just counterintuitive.
And there's also something interesting that happens, because there's certain people that just didn't like the sequel trilogy, and that's okay, but they're unable to move past that, right? So I've spoken to people who they're like, yeah, Star Wars just isn't very good now and all this stuff. And I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry you didn't like it. They're like, well, why do you? And I'll be like, well, I enjoyed, I love The Last Jedi, right? I'm not the biggest fan of, the rest of the sequels, but again, season 6 and 7 of the Clone Wars, I thought were great. Both were released under Disney. I thought Rebels was great, released under Disney. I think The Mandalorian. I think Battlefront 2 is a great game. Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor. There's a lot of really, really good books. The High Republic is good. Rogue One is good. Andor is good. Like, there's a lot of stuff, even if you don't like the sequels themselves. But like, if when you're talking to these people, they will be like, there's a lot of stuff that they do like. They like more stuff than they don't. They just can't get past the sequels.
But you just exposed a larger problem in the entire fandom of cherry picking to suit your narrative, right? Because a lot of people, and this is a problem like across all of Star Wars as well, a lot of people will, swear on Dave, swear on Favreau, but if it is terrible, it's Kathleen Kennedy's fault. But Kathleen Kennedy oversees everything. So you have people that are saying, just like you said, oh, season 7 of the Clone Wars, Andor, Mandalorian season 1, they'll name specific things that they like, but then they'll point at the ones that they don't like, and they'll say that Disney ruined it. But like, Disney is responsible for all the things that you also just mentioned that you like, including Mandalorian season 1. Even if you didn't like 2 or 3, it was still Lucasfilm. It was still Kathleen Kennedy, Filoni, and Favreau, and this is the problem. You can come to terms with some projects that you like, but you'll ultimately focus on the ones that you didn't like because you've had this conclusion baked into your head. You've started with the conclusion that Star Wars is dead. It's not.
I'll even talk to some people who, it always weirds me out because there's a bunch of young people that are into Legends books. So they weren't reading them while they were coming. Most of them don't actually read them. That is true. But like, a lot of them got into them because Disney has been re-releasing the best of the books. You know what I mean? And like, so for a lot of us, myself, who's been reading these things forever, there's a lot of really good books. There's a lot of really bad books. Now, people will swear that they're all the best because they come in later after there's already 400 books, and then they'll read the 5 best books, and then they're like, oh, it's the best thing ever, which is fine if that's your opinion. But like, I don't know. It's just interesting to me.
No, I mean, it's the opposite of what I was talking about, cherry picking, right? They'll say Legends is better than canon, but they will only be referring to the parts that they are familiar with and the parts that they like.
If they were reading them as they were coming out, like some of us were, you would have gone through a lot of bad books waiting for those gems, which is okay. The other thing that they said is that the lore and the canon has been broken or whatever. And so I asked for an example, and they were like, well, Force ghosts can't interact with the physical world. Otherwise, they could have just fought Palpatine or whatever.
Well, first and foremost, that's the wrong message from literally listening to Obi-Wan in Empire Strikes Back. I cannot interfere. Now, we have extended canon for a lot of this stuff as to, Force ghosts seeing the confluence of time and not wanting to interfere with events that will come to pass. But just using the movies and the visual media, there is precedence for Force ghosts interacting with the physical world. But the chief evidence I will use here is Clone Wars voices. When Yoda hears Qui-Gon Jinn's voice coming from the Nether for the first time, what is Qui-Gon Jinn doing? He's not even a ghost at this point. He's just his identity is just persisting because he hasn't completed the training yet. But even as a voice, as a floating presence, he's not even corporeal. He's floating Yoda. He's floating candles. He's blowing out the candles to demonstrate it's him. So there's your primary evidence. That was George Lucas.
It also happens in Legends. And it happens, I'm trying to remember. It was one of the young readers books from Legends, but the way that the Force Ghost explains it is, I'm able to interact with the Force in you, like things that the Force flows through, the Force Ghost can interact with, which to me makes sense.
I will say, man, you guys have the weirdest hang-ups about lore and canon in general. This probably stems from Luke catching the lightsaber. Can we just say, if none of this makes sense to you, can we just say he used the Force to levitate it and he's just grabbing it? Like it's just like Vader choking the air to choke someone from a distance. That's it. It's just a visualization of their effect on the Force. Luminous beings, are we?
I'm just saying, you not understanding something doesn't mean it ruins lore. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. Why can't Force Ghosts just go and do all this stuff for everyone? There's a lot of possibilities. For one, as what we find out in the short story Master and Apprentice is it's difficult to separate your consciousness, and it's not easy to do, and it's not easy to sustain. So they aren't going to be able to do it for long enough to just do everything. And then my personal theory is that since Force Ghosts see all time simultaneously, like they see what's going to happen, they only do what they need to do in that moment to make sure what needs to happen happens. You know what I mean? So
and that means if them being a part of that brings it about, then they know that they are part of that. So they then say, all right, I can appear here. Same thing with Obi-Wan going, Luke, you will go to Dagobah. I'm like, huh? Okay, I guess.
But I'm trying to picture what do you want? Force Ghost Obi-Wan goes to Bespin and kills Vader. Then what happens? Luke doesn't go through that experience. He doesn't get serious about his training, and then he still has to fight Palpatine, and he gets dog walked. You know what I mean? Like there's more to it than just that. That just reminds me of the previous comment, because the person was like, Luke didn't stop the first order or anything like that. And you're like, Luke didn't stop the Empire. Luke didn't stop the Emperor. Vader killed the Emperor.
The final thing we'll say about this before we wrap up this volume or edition of Exposing Bot Comments is take us to task. If you think lore and canon has been broken, you're speaking to, and I say this with utmost grace and utmost modesty, you're speaking to two of the most no-ball. You're speaking to two of the most knowledgeable people of canon. I tip my hat off to Choco for Legends because he's read a lot more in Legends. But I do know my Old Republic. So leave your comments. If you think that current canon has been broken in any way, and I don't want to see no Holdo maneuver broke hyperspace rules. I don't want to see the Acolyte lesbian space witches not being a thing. Or I don't want to see the Sith have been extinct for a millennium, and I don't want to see Ki-Adi-Mundi's birth date that you get from a Phantom Menace CD-ROM being like, oh, they broke that canon. Take us to task. If you think that Star Wars is ruined, if you think that the lore has been broken, leave your comments on this video and we'll reply with another one of these videos.
Yeah. Ask us in good faith, and we will happily answer in good faith.
But what did we learn today, Choco?
We learned that we are very knowledgeable.
And as Luke says in The Last Jedi, as it pertains to these comments, amazing. Every word of what you just said is wrong. May the Force be with you.